And we are live. Welcome back to another episode on Dev Talk. It's a live stream all about technologies and AWS. Strictly no slides, just codes and demos. And thank you everyone for joining me. And how's everyone doing? Please let me know where you're from on the comment box below. It's always nice to see everyone from around the world to join this live stream. And I see that we have I know this Facebook users, but I know it's from Reza Rosli. He's based in Malaysia. Hello, Reza. Thank you for joining us. Right. Okay. So while waiting for the other viewers to join this live stream, I just want to talk about this episode. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about developers' productivity. So, write code faster with less effort. That is the main theme for this episode. And as you probably knew, when it comes to writing code faster, we are talking about the coding companion tool, especially code generation. So we will discuss a new service from AWS that I think is very exciting, and that is Amazon CodeWhisperer. And why do I say it's exciting? Because Amazon CodeWhisperer will help us to speed up our coding by generating the code that we need thanks to machine learning. So the way it works is that I open my IDE, then type a comment what I want to do. Then CodeWhisperer will give you code recommendations, which is simply awesome. And as this is a live stream, we'd like to answer any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comment box below and we will try our best to address them. And of course, at the end of the session, I will share a survey link to get your feedback. And the first 10 users who complete the feedback will get AWS credits. So stay tuned until the end of the session. I see there's a comment coming up from Jones. Yo, Jones, how are you doing, man? Thank you for joining us in this live stream. Um, and for this episode, as always, we have a special guest, Atul Deo. He is the director of AI/ML product management at AWS. So, I'm going to let Atul in, and there you go. Hello,
Hi,
Atul.
Donnie. Hey,
Hi. Welcome to Dev
nice
Talk,
to be
bro.
here. Thank you.
Nice to having you here. Do you want to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hey, Donnie and folks, this is Atul here. I'm based in Seattle. As Donnie said, I'm a director in the machine learning team at AWS. And today I'm here to talk about Amazon Code Whisperer.
Awesome. Atul, thank you so much for being here. I know it's super late for you and really appreciate your time. Okay, so and and as you know, Atul, we've been talking in the past that some developers in the region we've been wanting to know more about this magical stuff, the Amazon Code Whisperer. In fact, uh, one of my friend, and he is the founder of Tutorial Dojo, he wrote an excellent article about Code Whisperer a couple of weeks ago. So I know there's a definitely interest about Code Whisperer. So my first question, Atul. Can you help to explain what Code Whisperer is? Probably some viewers haven't heard about this.
Sure. I think you did a pretty good job earlier on, but I'm going to take a stab at this again. So, Code Whisperer is a machine learning powered service that makes developers more productive, which is the goal of this session. Essentially, the way it does is it provides them computer generated code recommendations based on contextual information, such as their prior code and code comments in natural language.
Hmm.
Essentially, as you're writing code in your IDE, Code Whisperer automatically analyzes your comment, assembles the code using relevant libraries and APIs, and then recommends a bunch of different code snippets that meet best practices directly in your IDE. For example, you could just say convert the JSON file to CSV,
Hmm.
and Code Whisperer will generate the relevant recommendations for you on the fly.
I see. That's amazing. And as a developer, I've been relying on code completion to get further details about specific functions, to getting parameters info, just to make it easier for me to do coding. And what I know about Code Whisperer is that it's machine learning powered to provide us with these set of recommendation of code. And this is something really interesting. Atul, can you show us something that we can do with Code Whisperer?
Sure. I'm assuming you guys can see my
Um,
screen.
there you.
Awesome. Okay, so as you know, there are we can talk about which IDEs CodeWhisperer supports, but one of the IDEs that it supports is PyCharm, which is an IDE
Mm,
from JetBrains, and I'm going to show a very simple example here. Okay, so I'm going to take an example of something which most people kind of use commonly, right? I want to use function to translate. Okay, as I'm typing relatively fast, you can see how
mm,
fast I typed. It automatically suggested a completion for me. Now, this is the first type of completion that CodeWhisperer can do, which is text to text. It just try to complete, and I see that it has one suggestion. I'm going to hit Tab to accept this. As soon as I hit accept, it now gives me a function signature. And I look at the signature, and yeah, it looks about right. And I'm going to hit enter, and now it basically gives me two options. As you can see here, it says suggestion one of two from CodeWhisperer. All I need to do is click on the arrow key and I can see the second
mm.
one. In this case, they both look roughly the same, except an extra space. I'm just going to take the first one. I'm going to hit a tab and voila. I don't know. Right now, it's
Nice.
giving asking to generate a random joke, but we're going to skip that. But you get the idea. So uh, that's the first example that I wanted to share.
Awesome. So not only one recommendation, but couple of code recommendation from Code Whisperer.
Right. So usually, I mean, depending on the context, CodeWhisperer will give you up to five recommendations. Right? Of course,
Right.
over time we're going to increase more.
That is amazing. I really love that. I mean, seeing that how fast the Code Whisperers returns us the recommendations, and we can just easily generate the codes on our IDE. That's like minimize the friction of getting distracted. So we don't
Right.
need to go back and forth about on the documentation or even the other website like my favorite Stack Overflow to get the insights. Right.
Right.
So okay. So I think I we already have a couple of comments here, Atul, and okay, so the first question here is that how do I get started with Code Whisperer? It's currently in preview.
Right. So if you go to the Code Whisperer's website, which Danny you can share,
Yep.
or I can just do it here, which is if you go to Code Whisperer website, you can just sign up or click on the link, provide your basic details, and
Mhm.
you once you have your email address, we should be giving you access to the service pretty quickly within probably a week or so. And then once you have that, uh, people will get an email containing a token. They can just install the plugin for their IDE. And once they install the plugin, which is the AWS Toolkit plugin, they can enable Code Whisperer in the plugin by entering this token. And once they enter the token, they are ready to go and use Code Whisperer in their IDE.
That's it.
That's
Oh
it.
wow. Oh
Yeah.
nice. That's super easy. Okay, so and for all of you viewers, here's the link to get access from Code Whisperer. I highly recommend you to go to this page, fill the form, and wait for your token, and then you can easily integrate your token into your IDE. And this leads me to the next question, Atul. Like when you do your demo, I believe that you're using is this IntelliJ PyCharm,
Correct.
right? So the first question when it comes to code generation and code whisperers is does code whisperers available in other IDs like probably a Visual Studio Code, which is quite popular here
Right.
in the region?
Right. So today, Code Whisperer is available in a number of IDEs. The major IDEs include IntelliJ, uh, WebStorm, PyCharm. These are all
Hmm.
the three IDEs from JetBrains. In addition to that, we also support Visual Studio Code
I
and
see.
Cloud9. Cloud9 is AWS IDE. Now, interestingly, uh, Code Whisperer's technology is also natively integrated into the AWS Lambda console. So if you go to the AWS Lambda console and you enable Code Whisperer there, as you try to write some snippets of code there, you would be able to use Code Whisperer's code completion right there if you're trying to write a small snippet or something.
Amazing. So we got a comment from Jones here. He said that Code Whisperer is part of AWS Toolkit. I believe this is on the Visual Studio Code. It's brilliant. Yes, it is, Jones.
Well, I mean, if you, I'm assuming most AWS users already have
Mm,
AWS Toolkit installed. So in that case, they just essentially have to update their plugin.
yeah.
And once they do that, they have to enter the code for Code Whisperer and they can get going. And today, by the way, Code Whisperer is in preview, so it's completely free. So you guys can just use the service and give us feedback.
You hear that, everyone? So get started and just go to this website link to get the access token and then play with it. And you also mentioned that we are going to integrate the code whisperers into AWS Lambda function, the dashboard
The,
editor.
the
Is that some
console, correct? Yeah.
console? Is that
Mhm.
something that already been implemented?
Yes.
I see. That's amazing. Okay, and I'm until now. I'm still using code completion. So, in this case, if I use Visual Studio Code, I'm still using the IntelliSense. And the my question is that can I still enable these code completion engines that I'm currently using to work together with Code Whisperer, or should I disable the code completion engine, or can they work alongside together?
Yeah, they can work alongside. Although
Hmm?
the one interesting thing call out is there's a primary difference between the traditional code completion tools like IntelliSense, right?
Mm,
IntelliSense in the past it would give you one kind of little word recommendations. So
yeah.
think of it as properties of an object. I hit the dot and then there's a drop down that comes up.
Mm,
Uh, these kind of Code Whisperer does a the recommendations of Code Whisperer can be up to 20 lines long. That is unprecedented. We have not seen that kind of code recommendations from these traditional code complete tools like
yep.
IntelliSense.
Amazing. And I've been wondering about this. Code Whisperer is powered by machine learning, and that explains how it gets the magic. And can you tell
Right.
us more info on how it actually works?
Right. So let me do a little lesson in history on machine learning. Obviously, machine learning is not super old, but historically, machine learning models they were trained. They used to have millions of parameters. In recent times, what has happened is these models have gotten really large.
Mm,
And the simple way to think about it is these large models can they can incorporate information and context from a large amount of data. Now, in case of Code Whisperer, what has happened is we've used billions of lines of code from various data sources, such as open source code and Amazon code, that have gone into the training of these models. Now, because these models have seen all this code, they can now understand the context and the relationships. And next time when you are actually using Code Whisperer, depending upon where your cursor is, what you have typed, and what you're typing and what you have typed before and after, it takes into consideration all that context and it generates code based on that. Think of it, you may have heard of this analogy that chess and go, the computer driven chess and go players, they have been able to come up with strategies that even humans did not know of. So this is
mm.
kind of like that, where sometimes the Code Whisperer will come up with a code recommendation that it may not have even seen in the training data. So essentially, the recommendations can be quite intelligent.
Right. Okay, so that's amazing. Um, I received another question, and this is a very interesting one, Atul. The question is, there are few code companion or similar tools, and I think the real question is, why should I use Code Whisperer? I guess the question is more to what is the key differentiator of Code Whisperer, and what are the benefits?
Right. So the number one thing about Code Whisperer is that it is great for generating code related to AWS APIs. Now, if I mean AWS, one of the best things about AWS is that we offer 200 plus services, and there are thousands of APIs that go along with those 200 plus services. Now, because there is so much depth and breadth of functionality, sometimes it can be overwhelming for developers,
Yep.
and it can be hard to just go and figure out the right API, the right parameters, go through the documentation. With Code Whisperer, what you can do is simply, as we took as the example, right? We just were trying to translate from one source language to another. Like that's obviously a very simple example, but not always things are that straightforward. And when you do that, when you enter your comment or when you're just writing your code, Code Whisperer, Code Whisperer will do a good job of finding the relevant snippet or creating the relevant snippet for you on the fly.
Right.
So
And
that's
sorry, go on,
sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead. No, so I was going to say that's the first benefit of using Code Whisperer compared to others. The second important benefit is more around the lines of responsible AI.
Mm,
So, and there are a number of important issues here. First is that Code Whisperer is careful about the code that it generates. For example, it makes sure that the code that it generates does not have things like PII data, because obviously it's trained on a lot of code data, and sometimes people leave sensitive details like keys and AWS credentials. I'm going to show an example later about this, where something sensitive is just left there, and that
mm.
could be exposed as new recommendations pop up. So we take a lot of care in ensuring that no sensitive data comes out. Number two, we also make sure that developers are aware uh, of the source, or kind of the where the code recommendations are coming from. So
Mm.
obviously, Code Whisperer uses a lot of open source code data for its training, and while in most cases the code that is generated by Code Whisperer is unique, it doesn't match or it's not very similar to the data in the open source or in the training data set. Um, in cases where it is similar, uh, Code Whisperer will basically flag and tell you that, hey, you know what, this is a code that is coming from this source, and you should probably take necessary action. Sometimes you may have to do the right attributions, you may have to get a necessary license. It just allows you to be more responsible in terms of open source code.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so and then there are two main benefits here, right? But I just want to break it down into into these two parts. The first one is that you mentioned one of the benefits for developers is they can develop and integrate easier with AWS services and APIs. Can you show us something cool?
Sure. So again, the AWS APIs, I took one example, which was the translation. What I can
Yep.
do is I can take another example. Let's take a simple example, which is function to upload a file to S3. And I'm just going to say option C is kind of, manual trigger for sync. So I did this, and then I get a function signature. I hit tab to accept the signature, and voila, after this I'm going to get a big code generated by Code Whisperer. Now as you can see, this code is pretty long. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
it's definite, and it has the right documentation along with it inside of it. So that's pretty helpful. So I basically, in this case, it's given me only one recommendation, and I'm going to hit tab to accept it. Now,
Wow.
now look at this interesting thing. It's giving me a function, automatically suggesting function to download a file from S3, not just upload. So I'm just going to say, okay, and I'm going to say accept. And I'm going to do the same thing. Sorry, my throat is just going out of action just at the wrong time. So here I see a bunch of different comments, and I keep going.
That is amazing. So it's not only one line, but it's a book of lines. Like I believe it's around 15 to 20 lines. And it doesn't stop there. It provides us with recommendation
Correct. It
on
keeps going.
keeps on
Because
going.
the interesting thing is, we don't expect developers to just take whatever is generated by Code Whisperer as is. In some cases, in some easy problems, that is going to be the case. But in most real world scenarios, what you're actually going to do is you're going to go and modify the code a little bit. And then what happens is Code Whisperer understands that you made those edits, and then it takes those changes into consideration while giving you a next set of code recommendations. So essentially, you could keep typing, interacting, and it just keeps kind of working with you to generate more recommendations.
I see. Okay, so my next question is that we have one question. This one is from Mohan Kumar. I think this go whisper complaint and housing. Okay, so I think we going. That would be my
Yeah.
my third question. I'm going to ask you that later. Thank you, Mohan Kumar. But my question here is that I know that
Actually, I should pause you. I should pause you
Huh?
because Mohan Kumar did me a favor. I had forgotten about an important differentiator, which is, and this is a very critical differentiator. It falls
Mhm.
in the second camp, which is responsible AI. The code that is generated by CodeWhisperer, we also provide a bunch of security detectors.
I
So
see.
there are these security detectors are built in into CodeWhisperer. So as you can see, I'm going to show you this, but in a demo. But right now, I'm just going to show you. You can see this run security
Okay,
scan
so
here. So uh, once the code is generated, I can just hit this run security scan button, and in the panel below, it will just tell me if there are any issues in the generated code.
sorry, Atul, can you please zoom in a bit?
Uh, okay, this is fully zoomed in.
I think that's fine. Okay.
Okay, are you able to see
Right.
this run security scan on the? Okay, I'm going to show you run security scan here.
Oh yes, I can see it. Yeah, this on the left side, around
Yeah,
security scan.
right.
Okay, so okay, so I'm really curious about that now. Is this what does it do actually? You mentioned about how the Code Whisperer also aligns with responsible AI, and
Right. So actually, let me do a quick demo. I mean, I'm liking this format where instead of just doing one bunch of demos in one go, we're
Mhm.
talking about stuff and we can see it live, right?
Yep.
So let's do this. So I'm going to delete some of this, and I'm just going to add a simple thing, which is variables to store. So actually, I am doing something which is what we should not be doing, right?
Yeah, okay.
So,
This is fun and
right,
scary.
right. So as you can see, it's giving me some recommendations, but it's giving me recommendations with no actual values. So I'm going to pick
Mm,
this one, and it's giving me some secret key, which I will also accept. Region, sure. A bunch of different things I'm going to accept. Okay, so it looks like it stopped. Or let's see if it has more. Okay, it has more. Okay, I'm going to stop here. But now let me do one simple thing, right? I'm going to take this. I'm just going to run security scan. So it's running a security scan right now. The important thing to know is that Code Whisperer does not just run the security scan on the code that it has generated. It's actually running the code, the security scan on all the code that is going to be in this window. So in this case,
mm.
it's just this little bit of code. But if there was more code, it would be running the security scan across everything. And that's important because sometimes the issues might not be possible to see actually. Oh, well, for some reason, it has not shown.
Right, it's currently running. So you mentioned about this Code Whisperer is going to analyze the all the open codes, not only on this file.
Correct. It's going to analyze everything in just this file, but not just the code that it generated itself. You know.
I I see. Oh, that's amazing. So so that means that the workflow for the developers is that once that they wrote their codes and their functions, and then we can ask Code Whisperer to run security scan to check if there's any issue in terms of security, or even probably like to some extent PII in our codes.
Right.
Okay, amazing.
So I'm going to let me take this thing again. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's see what happens. I'm going to run the security scan again.
Okay, so while waiting, we do have a question from Danny from
Sure.
Indonesia. Um, so there are two questions to be honest. So the first one is is Code Whisperer part of the AWS toolkit? I think you already answered it. The answer is yes. It's part of AWS toolkit in Visual Studio Code. And then the second question um, is is this Code Whisperer more to make corrections in writing code?
Sorry, I didn't follow the question. What does that mean?
So I think the question is more on is using Whisperer will help us to make the corrections if I wrote a wrong function names or like a wrong API. Is the Code Whisperer going to correct me on writing the codes?
Yeah, so right now, Code Whisperer doesn't correct existing code. What it'll do is
See,
generate new code based on prior context. It won't kind of go and tell you that, hey, this code that you have is wrong. That's not the current intent of Code Whisperer.
I see. Okay. I hope that explains and answer your questions, Danny. Thank you so much. Okay, so um, okay, so another question, and I've been curious about this, Atul. Like, while you demonstrated us how that we could integrate, now how can we use code whisperers to help us by writing some sort of recommendations, code generations for integrating with other services, like you mentioned about Translate and S3 as well. But how about how about the other frameworks? Like probably for those who are in the in the in the data area, like using Panda, something
Yeah,
like that. Is there something that we can do with Code Whisperer?
absolutely. Let's take an example for that. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to say import pandas as PD. Okay, I'm going to just write that. Or actually, do I have one here? Okay. Okay, I do already have one here. Okay. So then I'm going to say function to load a CSV into a data frame. And I'm just going to say option C so that I can force Code Whisperer to complete it. I
Yep.
see, as you say, and then I see two recommendations here. They both look very similar. I'm just going to take this one, and here again I see two.
Mm.
Now this is okay, but it's not cool enough. So why don't we, instead of, let's delete this and say after this, select columns, name, age, and salary. Actually, I don't want
Mm.
salary. I want to say address. And now I'm going to say enter. Okay. And I see. I'm going to say, which one should I pick? Let's pick the one with the file name.
Wow.
Okay. There you go. So as you can see, it's generated a bunch of different versions of code. I'm probably going to take the, let's
And you can
say,
easily like going back and
yeah.
forth by using the arrow
Right.
keys.
Right. Because you have to decide which ones I want to pick, right?
Nice. Okay, so that totally makes me like a more focused because I can stay on my IDE. I love
Right.
this. Right. Okay, so we have another question from Akilan. What programming languages does it support?
Right. So today, Code Whisperer supports three programming languages, which is Python, Java, and JavaScript.
Right. I'm
And
probably need
I should confess, we are planning to support more languages. It's just because the service is still in preview,
Mhm.
but when by the time the service becomes generally available, we'll support more languages. So I know that's going to be a popular ask. So I'm just
Yeah,
sharing that in advance.
even though it's in preview, it's already looks awesome. And to be honest, I'm going to use Code Whisperers to help me writing the JavaScript. Right. Okay. Um, okay. So that's really awesome, Atul. Thank you so much. And for everyone, we are almost not ended yet, but we're almost at the end of the session. And as mentioned earlier, that I have a server link for all of you. Let me flash it out here, and then we want to know what you think about Code Whisperer. And for the first 10 users who completed the survey, you'll get $25 AWS credit codes that you can use. So I will leave it here so you can access the survey. And meanwhile, I'm going to check if there's any other question. Um, oh, okay. So this is interesting, Atul. So there's another question. It's related to supporting other IDEs. Uh, what are the other IDEs that you're going to support with Code Whisperer?
We are looking at supporting other IDs, but we don't have a concrete list that I can share right
Okay,
now. But by GA, we'll look to support more IDs.
awesome. Okay, um, I think that's all. Yeah, I think that's all questions that we have on this live stream. All right. Yeah. So, Atul, is there any closing remarks or words of wisdom before we end the session?
No, this was awesome. Thanks, Donnie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to flash the Code Whisper form again. Here, you just go to this link and then you will be redirected to the Code Whisperer form. You can just file it out and then you will get token within a week. And then you can use that token to integrate within your IDE. So that's pretty smooth. And yeah, so my my thought about Code Whisperer is that it's super awesome. Thank you so much, Atul, for providing us with the demos. It definitely going to help me to stay focused and improve my development productivity. So I think that's all, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this live stream, and happy building.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.